Welcome back to episode 54, season 5 of the Geometric View. Thank you for being here. We'll see you weekly. This is a weekly broadcast. But as for this episode, we're getting into star seeds, the shape of ideas, seed of seeds, plasma surfing, segmentation, tagmosis, animals, panspermia, and how the heck all the ideas came to Earth. I'm Buddy James, your host. Let's get into it. Let's get into the circuit. The best way to support us is on PayPal, goldenscaling@gmail.com. Thank you. All right, welcome back everybody to the Geometric View. I'm Buddy James, your host, and today is episode 54, season 5, and we're going to be getting into star seeds, the shape of ideas, panspermia, seed of seeds, sound seeing structures, which is interesting, idea packets, light foliating into plants and animals, sonobiology, life out of sound, attention to focus and create charge in the form of plasma and plasma waves, so attention to create that, these plasma waves. Ideas are seed packets that flow through and within. We're plasma surfing. I did a presentation and I did a drawing as I normally do on every episode. So we're going to get severely into segmentation and tagmosis, which we'll show deeper what it is. Cosmic plasma background, not cosmic microwave background, the topology or surface tension of ideas, structured water, structured ideas, etc., etc. So let me pull up. Okay, so here's the presentation. But before we get into the presentation, I'm going to pull up some definitions on Google here. Okay, tagmosis meaning the evolutionary process that creates tagmata by fusing and modifying segments. Okay, now if you go to images, it is this. Now we're going to do geometric tagmosis and how individual nodes inside of the tagma or tagmosis itself are iterative functions or reiterative fractal functions that scale up and scale down, which might sound already kind of obvious as you look at it. It's fractal, but this geometry here, it is exhibited in a lot of creatures and a lot of bugs, and so we're going to hop into this. That's tagmosis, and we're going to get into segmentation. I was going to put this in the presentation, but I was just looking through it, and I'm going to pull my way through this presentation. Segmenting is different parts, like our hands are different from our arms, are different from the limbs, so it's different segmentations. So we're going to look at geometry and also agriculture, botany, see how this goes through from first principle geometries that are unfolding from the sun and galactic filaments down to micro spires and microfilaments and cavitation. This is also what happens in controlled cavitation. And cavitation, there's a vortex-like structure you see there. But this is exhibited in all sorts of arthropods. So now let's hop into the presentation. Okay, so this is the presentation and this is the image. Okay, there's so much to say about this. Now, all that I did here actually is I did this Starbrite pattern, and this Starbrite pattern is exhibited in natural types of ways throughout the Dougherty set, as you take one uh, one Bessel function or one ripple, and you go from the top of the ripple to the bottom of the ripple to the top of the ripple to the bottom of the ripple, and you can create this effect. But what makes this is rotating it 3D in a wireframe, and you get these like pill bug type shapes that are segmented and exhibit tagmosis. Now, this is also the type of oscillations that you get when you levitate, or similar type oscillations that you get when you levitate water, or when you put vibrations with sound, levitation, sonic levitation. When you have a wave droplet and you hit it with a certain frequency, it starts to create these types of seemingly living type structures. So each one of the gills of the projectile here, so I'm showing that really what this idea is coming from panspermia, which is life coming from, seeded from outer space. So we can ask ourselves these questions like, what how do ideas, how do frequencies barrel their way through the ozone layer and back out through space to cavitate themselves into um, recurrent oscillations? And then you get these, exactly what this is. This is tubes within tubes within tubes. And this idea will blip through this idea as this tube is hollow, and the shapes can nest within each other like Russian dolls nesting. But indeed, this does happen, and this is called well, Whistler waves is one of the names of them, and we've known about this since like 1897, when we were originally first telecommunicators were listening to the auroras, or basically just the upper atmosphere, and there was these waves that were coming through. Now I've taken this idea of these tubes that are actually, these tubes exist inside of, outside of, which I'll show later in the presentation here, uh, and we talk about plenty of times throughout the geometric view here. But these tubes within tubes have the identity of entities moving through them, and oxygen-rich tubes, and these permanent uh, uh, places and factories of iterative ideas bombarding the planet. So the idea here is that these sounds come from the auroras in the upper atmosphere and impinge in the ground like needles, and through uh, sonotropism, sound pulling up the pattern of itself, we get pine cones, we get pine trees, we get uh, all of the firstlings, the first types of new beginnings. And then you go on and on and on with these structures, and you complexify them with many different size cylinders coming in as birkeland currents, microtubules and micro frequencies, and tubes within tubes, as that is what these cylinders are. Yeah, so you can see it also within the architecture of buildings, and we'll get more into that, not as much as I want, but you can see like the One Trade Center or stacked collimated cylinders or types of buildings that represent this. So each one of these gills lies down to become part of the ripple pattern. Each ripple is allowed to go through the movement. So this is like moving an object, if you will. It's constantly foliating. So it's constantly coming out from the center inward, like one of those gooey things that you can hold, and it has a hollow center and it keeps moving inside of itself. It's like a toy. That's kind of like what this is. So I don't even know if there's other names for these, but I know there's chorus. I know this is helicon physics, and Alfine waves and Alfine atmospheres. So this is, I'll continue here. Each one of the gills of these projectiles can be associated with a common cylinder, as it is seen on the top and bottom right of this image. So I think that ideas and also spores and spore packets and implementation and implanting these types of ideas, this is the common core here. You can use this common core geometry to embed different signaling and entrainment. So this shape is the result of putting a 3D wire mesh, okay, like I said, with a flash. So it's kind of weird that just this simple, and you can do as many gills as you want or as less gills. This is the reverse shape right here, which builds the Jed pillar, the Jedi, the column, the center of the toroid, the wormhole. So we're going to hop into a bunch of different aspects of this type of patterning. You can see that type of same shape right here. Very similar. You could superimpose that right on top here and have the legs, which I'm probably going to do, and that's creepy. Creepy crawly. Okay, so larva and pupa do the same thing. But first, before we get into larva and pupa, I want to look at this morphospace and morphotransitions here and how important this is to what I'm trying to convey and trying to explain here. I haven't put some of the best details or geometries of examples of this. So after the presentation, I'm going to go through and show more of these types of structures, these shell-like structures, and this this helical shell-like structure as well. So a morphospace is a representation of the possible form, shape, or structure of an organism. So I'll repeat that again. A morphospace is a representation of the possible form, shape, or structure of an organism. A possible, so it's like a potentiality of it. So morphospace corresponds to a variable which describes some character of the organism. At each point in a morphospace represents an individual organism. Each point in the morphospace represents an individual organism. So all of our guts, all of the atoms in our body, everything is in morphospace, and there's constant changing and variance that's happening, and variance and invariance that's happening through the morphospace and the morphotransitions. So like, imagine this as like a prebiotic or abiotic soup where the geometry of life is not really, or the geometry of an atom is not really there yet. It's like the pre-space of something, the pre-arrangement of the space. But it's also flexible because there's a plasticity there. There's a geometric plasticity and a biological plasticity inside of morphospace, because it's like the potential of what the creature could be. So here's some examples of that very simple Tagmosis and segmentation, and which is also like foliations of light, foliated, laminate, laminar, laminae type of pattern here. Also the same thing inside of the Dougherty set. This is the harmonic scale, and it also shows the halves and tritones and quarter notes and other notes nested inside of it. But this is a more, I don't know if polyphonic's the right word, or more categorized scale, where the nested loops are more in consonance, not dissonance. So there's not as much dissonance here as that I'm highlighting, but the rest of it can be highlighted as well. So here's some more pictures of larvae, and you can think of buds of trees, the budding life forms and life formations on different trees exhibit this similar type of geometry. And cocoons, so this geometry is most of the time, I mean, and you know, you can't look at this without thinking about, or you know, you might notice it looking like, you know, the clitoris and the vagina, and you know, the female reproductive parts. So these frequencies repeat themselves over and over on these cascading shells, and these shells a lot of the time are, these bugs are exoskeletal, so they shed their shells, their skins, their skeletons, and grow into new creatures and transform through multiple morphospace geometries. And also there's something that's happening inside of these creatures that we don't really discuss much inside of that I don't hear much anywhere, is this this easy water, exclusion zone water, or structured water that is inside of these creatures. Every time they change structure, the structure changes inside the water inside the creature. Living water inside of creatures is structured water. There's a living water and a living life that is inside of us. You don't just, we're what, 70% water? You don't just cut us open and see water gushing out. That water is in the many different forms of structured water. And it's inside the body, and the body, the water has structure just like these geometries have structure on these creatures, on all scales, cascading upward and downward. Now you can see here similar kind of stuff going on in planaria, plankton, the trilobite. Of course, the trilobites are a group of extinct marine arthropods that are formed in this class Trilobita. Trilobites form one of the earliest known groups of arthropods. So that I botched a couple of those words, whatever. So you get the main idea here, what I'm going for. So there's been water that I see that vibrates just like this on Rupert Sheldrake's site, referring to the memory. And that's what we're talking about here, the memory of shapes, the memory of, if there were to be a catastrophic event and everything were to be wiped, all the living creatures would be wiped off the planet. Where's that memory reside? Is it in the earth, or is it in the Van Allen belts? Is it in the morphospace? Is it in the morphic resonance? Is it that type of creature stacking, that it is one torus within another torus enveloping another torus that creates the crosswinds for the creatures to be created? That's the geometry we're looking at here. This is the cavitation that happens, sonobioluminescent cavitation, or sonocavitation inside of the skies, uh, and also inside of other planets that creates these the necessity of life after life begets life. So we know what um, the cone is an organ on plants in the division Pinophyta, Pinophyta that contains the reproductive structures. The familiar cone, the familiar woody cone, is the female cone, which produces seeds. The male cones, which produce pollen, are usually herbaceous and much less conspicuous even at full maturity. Okay, so they're usually smaller. Man, I'm in a rocking chair, so I'm having a hard time going back and forth reading this, so I need to stop rocking. Either way, these pine cones are rocking, and it's the same shape that we're talking about here. This rocking shape of um, sonotropism that I was talking about earlier in other episodes too, where it pulls up based off of the sound of the geometry of light itself, light cavitating. So now we're going into grains and how grains and most of the earth, I don't know if many of us know this, but 80% of the land mass is covered with grasses, and different grasses are the cereals and the millet and the oats and the corn and barley, rye. Well, not corn, but maize, rice. You know, they all have this basic structure to them. So 80% of the land mass is thinking along the lines, if it's conscious at all, or if these thoughts or these geometries are um, part of a larger living system that of course, the mind of God or the mind of plasma or the electrical grid itself is creating these geometries here. These ideas might already be ingrained inside of the morphospace or the morphogenic fields of these, and they keep coming back. Grasses are extremely hardy. They can exist in the tundra. They can exist all over the world. That's why they're so pervasive, why they're so prevalent all over the world. Now, I don't know why I threw that in there. Probably because the architecture here of the egg. And this basic egg structure has been what we're kind of looking at the whole time, whether we knew it or not. But from the geometry at the beginning of the show till here, I'm not going to read anymore, obviously, because I'm rocking in my chair and I'll just botch whatever's going on over here. You can read for yourself what this says. But this gets back now into the cavitaceous nature or the enveloping nature of this shape that I started with here. And you can see the similarities here with this hop vibration or this twistor that was drawn in. Here's the information, but I found on on the internet somewhere. But what it does explain is this type of segmentation, this type of whirling, this type of legs, ligaments, bodies, structure, where you have a head, a tail, a body, arms come out of the body, wheat comes out of the body, the grain, this type of living structure. There's also, when we get into the news hour, and when I get into showing more of the electric universe geometry as we get into this, and plasma universe geometry, we'll see that there's a stellarator of geometry based off of this design to try to get ultimately free energy. So, or an over unity device, nonetheless. So these bodies, these limbs, and this tagmosis and segmentation and this foliations of light that are happening as it furls and unfurls, and bodies are created, and the pine cone curls, and these whirl and do the whirling dervish. These are our fields. We are formed out of the field. So as this image is on, let me, if I could, I wrote this little bit here. So it go this little poemish or whatever. To the beholder of thunder, the one with wonder in the eye, the devotee. The ritual never happened. Peals of lightning cling to your every expression. Even your thoughts are an extension. Hair split like the Vajra dipped ink tip. Pupils dilate as the ink flows new potions into my bones. Soaked in sweat, I am a light veteran. Piercing light language with mudras dangling fruit just below your lips. The miracles are in my breath, hand dancing to rapture. I'm lightning in a bottle, charged up full throttle. I'm thunder in a womb, mucus and all I consume until the tomb. The song is your own song. Take it, stab it into your soul. Gold is the luster of the colors gushing upward, the inner constitution's rich in minerals. Living nimble, living quick, living among the glory of the candlesticks. I'm a baby, and your cradle is love. Every noise is a murmur of you. I can't believe we're letting us have this for free. Music is a lock, and we are the key. Novelty grovels to me as I cavitate. Schumann activates rapture. I am the center of the Jed, the towerful Taurus. That's just a little poem that I wrote. So since I've seen the Taurus, and we're talking about the Jed, and we're talking about the center of the column of the pillar, these are the center of the columns of the pillar, and it's the female fruit and the male fruit of the pine tree, the conifers. Here is an image of water that I got from Ben Davidson's Suspicious Observers website, or a still picture that I captured from one of his YouTube videos. Now, here's the solar symphony that's happening, and how what I'm explaining here does not need to have aliens even to be part of it. These interdimensional geometries that are layered and nested within each other and nested within each other are the bodies themselves of the archangels, of the hierarchical angels, and what we have worshipped throughout time and eons as gods. So there is a higher structure, there is higher communication, there is lower communication, there is deeper communication, inner communication. There is a sentience everywhere, it seems. So space isn't silent. In fact, an entire orchestra of instruments fills our near-Earth environment with eerie sounds. Scientists have long known about space phenomena involving electromagnetic waves traveling around Earth that resonate like stringed instruments and whistle like wind instruments. Now, new research published in Nature Communications has added a percussive member to the cosmic ensemble, the giant drum, triggered by plasma jets striking the boundary of the protective magnetic bubble surrounding our planet. The magnetosheath, the magneto bubble, known as the magnetosphere, is encased by a boundary region known as the magnetopause. That's what I was looking for, magnetopause. Our first barrier to high energy particles coming from the sun. At the magnetopause, the majority of solar particles are deflected around Earth, but under certain conditions, some sneak through. Understanding the mechanics of the magnetopause is key to helping keep our satellites, telecommunications, and astronauts safe from the potentially harmful radiation these particles bring. Now, this is what I'm talking about. These tubes that we saw are nested inside of these geometries that you can hear from the auroras, and you can hear because the pine trees and the pine needles themselves acoust or work as an amplifier to amplify the sounds of these upper sprites, upper spherics, these lightning connected rods and vajra that are holding everything together. Literally, it's the electric type of connection here. So I was going to get into surfing plasma waves, but I don't have the link, so it might be in the news hour. Hoping it's in the news hour. But this geometry here of surfing plasma waves is really cool, and I believe they're working with the University of Michigan, so that's really cool. Might be able to try to communicate with him and have him on the show. So next we have those, I put the bubbles on this geometry of the Dougherty set, and you can see, like, it reminds me of roly-polies or pill bugs. And at the same time, the geometry here of the solar winds. This is plasma surfing. The geometries are creating different legs and bodies and segmenting themselves. So this segmentation and cavitation comes and starts at the very first principle geometries coming off of the sun, or the first geometries of anything. There is this natural roping, like pinching off kink instability that's happening here. And I think we'll get into some of that. And if we look at ourself here in consciousness, this is an image, not really sure where it's from. If anybody wants to comment and knows where it's from, go ahead, please. The 7 bodies here, we have the condensed elemental vehicle, the physical body, the etheric body, and I like this because it shows these higher selves that are able to be reached during meditation, God moments, breathing, breath work, prayer, entheogens, especially breathing. So there's a higher mental vehicle out here. There's the astral body, the lower mental body of the elemental vehicle. Then there's the solar angel, the atmic body, the buddhic body, monic fragments, the monad, which is the singularity, and then the solar logos, which is obviously the language of God in the universe. Christ is a condensate, Christ becoming the Word. So we have a similar image here. I've always had an affinity or my spirit creature or soul creature, whatever you call them, has been a stingray. So this is a stingray's skeletal body, which is really crazy and gorgeous, reminding us of the shapes that we've been studying. And then moving on to the next here, we have this pinching. This is the 10 concatenations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they're by no means individual, meaning singular. No, certain ones nest on top of and inside of other ones, so they're part and parcel of another DNA, space DNA structure, plasma DNA, plasma. But this, you can see the segmentation and this pinching in this shell-like shape of the morphospace, pre-iteratively, preeminently cavitating, and also progressive filaments. This is the really important part here. The progressive geometry of this. This is the quaternic progressive geometry of projective geometry that we're looking at when we're talking about going into source, going into the Christic type of geometry of the square within the square, the square within the circle, the square cubing, spearing the cube. This type of geometry here is revolutionary, and it is what's going to take us into understanding the these hierarchical nested ideas within ideas that form structures ahead of time in the morphospace that create the morphic resonance that allow the creatures to even exist in the first place. Each one of these filaments are infinite, and there's infinite bodies and familiarity, phylums, if you will, inside of each one of these. Space DNA and plasma DNA create, outside of the earth, the bodies ahead of time for the next creatures that are going to become the next creatures, if you follow what I'm saying. The evolution of the strings and the cacophony, or inside of the sound of the living water, is in the upper atmospheres. And that's why we've communicated with God and heavenly angels and hosts, and we could hear these a lot more during higher when the ionosphere, higher charge instances, when the ionosphere comes closer to the earth, which is what's happening right now. There's just more energy in all things. It's thrown about and plugged into filaments within filaments within filaments. This is what creates eons. This is what epochs are. This is what this is what the Indras are. This is what the yugas, the Kali Yuga cycles within cycles. These are birkeland currents, solar filaments. The solar system is a birkeland filament system. It is a Gaussian Bessel filament. These are Gaussian Bessel filaments, and the same thing is true with the DNA that is one step above this, or that is one step collapsed inside of this. Life is part and parcel of the field. The field creates the form. The field is part and parcel of the form. It is Gestalt. It is all one. So here's another article of the scientists coming closer to understanding this filamentous and nodal universe, toroidal node universe. Astronomers discover largest known spinning structures in the universe. In the new research, Lebskind and his colleagues found that cosmic filaments, or gigantic tubes made of galaxies, apparently spin. There are structures so vast that entire galaxies are just specks of dust. Lebskind said, these huge filaments are much bigger, much bigger than clusters. So you can see this kink instability here, which is the pinches in between the pinches and between the pinches that happens when you wind a rubber band around itself. You get this same type of kink structure. Um, if you keep winding and winding and winding, it pushes out. It'll push out to one side or the other. And that's what creates another tendril or a peduncle off of it. And yeah, that looks like that concludes what part of what we're trying to say here. So let me escape out of this. So now recapping on what we talked about, the morphic resonance or morphogenetic patterning of these creatures is themselves, or could be itself, segmented or have some tagmosis, or like at the center of the hop vibration, as it twists, it creates these bodies at the center of the Jedi pillar. So when I say Jed and Jedi pillar, the geometric view news. Yeah. Sweet. Haven't been here in a while. Excited. Okay. What do we have here? All right. Let's go. Seymour. So sound, light, electricity, and gravity are all spherical propagations, like a spherically expanding shock wave outward in all directions from a point source. Here is Theodorian roots. Theodorian roots are the projective geometry of regular polyhedra nested equally inside of regular polyhedra. You take a triangle, you nest it inside of a triangle, and then you circumscribe it with a circle, and you get this Bessel function. This is an iterative Bessel function that builds bodies like we were talking about. These are wave cylindrical, solenoidal type of properties that come off of this. So due to the recursion of this first iterative Bessel function, you take it and you move equal distance kissing spheres, because you can look at this as 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, etc. You take the circle and you move it over once, equal diameter. So you keep doing that function with each one of these circles, and you get this projective geometry that creates progression. You can't have progression in anything. Progressive notes, progression in progressive thoughts, progressive atoms, atomic structures, light, gravity, everything is projective and progressive. So coming off of this projective and progressive geometry, you have these individual roots that are formed, and these roots are the Bessel functions. These roots, Theodorian roots, derived directly out of the Dougherty set, and then you have an infinite amount of them, and there's an infinite amount of them in each one of these. So they're each infinitely expressive, and they can all get us to different places, and possibly different focal lenses for the holographic universe, understanding and getting to different places, dialing into different regions of the universe, instantaneous communication, other things like that. These building a structure that could create these iterative pulses could itself create like a projective holographic movie of real life happenings in different places around the universe. That's what the I3 is that we talk about here on the show. So here's a graph, the mathematical law graph according to this sound bubble and wave model. You can check that out more because we have so much to go through. There's a lot to say here, but taking into consideration what Jason Verbelli is talking about here, and continuing it using the Theodortian roots, we see the projective geometry of the cascade filaments. These are just fractal repetitions or recursions of the same identical exact Bessel function. Like I said, these iterative Bessel functions produce the processes we see and perceive and our senses. So this structure is building the field. This field is, and we're part of the field. The field creates the forms, and we're forms inside the field. Then it's really good to understand this field and get to know it as much as possible. So this is what we were just talking about with this toroidal structure moving around the body, the Van Allen belts and toroids within toroids and Hopfians and twistors. This is the stellarator model, helical windings, here's plasma, and this is some of the blueprints to figure out exactly the stellarator, which is awesome. If you look into it, it's helices within helices within helices, toroids within toroids within toroids, like what we've been talking about, which is what the Dougherty set is. And yeah, so here's the Dougherty set showing off stellations, I call it. These bodies of segmentation and forms and helicoids and toroids, and this is stellarator geometry. So this geometry can be used to create the hyper metadata construct of the future viewing devices, of looking deep into everything, not only looking but sensing, actually being able to be plugged into the senses that we've never even been able to imagine yet. I mean, imagine being an electric eel and being aware of your environment electrically. That's a completely different brain. So we're going to have that brain using these filaments, diving and going directly into this. So I think we went through this. Let me go. Yep, there it is again. And that's a different, you can have hierarchical pinching stellarators and stellatrons, which would actually create this, which almost is representative of the thorns of Christ. So if I were to draw 5 or 6 or 7 of these on top of each other, which I can, and I kind of want to do, then you get to understand the way that the dynamics of this field here, these birkeland currents, create the forms and separate the particles based on atomic weight due to Markland convection. Using sound waves to make patterns that never repeat. That looks kind of cool. While that's pulling up, I'll continue on. This is gorgeous, and here we go. I want to full scale this. Nope, I can't full scale because it gets smaller. This is sweet here. There it is. You can hear the frequency. Amazing. Look at those individual pods, those segments. The morphospace, how fluid it is, how transient, and how it goes back and forth. Now imagine this in a tube, changing in a tube, creating real life time-like structures and slices of the body. That would be the lungs expanding and contracting. That's awesome. Cool. So that's that. Thank you, Aaron Highfill. So gold sees quasi-stationary waves in the nighttime ionosphere. What? Gold scan. Gold in the ionosphere? What's going on here? So this never repeating pattern, apparently, or something. It's gorgeous. I love this pattern. It looks cool. Using sound waves to make patterns that never repeat. Mathematicians and engineers at the University of Utah have teamed up to show how ultrasound waves can organize carbon particles in water into a sort of pattern that never repeats. Wow, that's really cool. The results, they say, could result in materials called quasi-crystals with custom magnetic and electrical properties. Oh my gosh, that's cool. That's really cool. Magnetic electrical properties and chords and cables and different things. Yeah, this is cool. Mathematicians, so research published in physical newsletters. This is, by the way, the ATTHEU utah.edu. So quasicrystals are interesting to study because they have properties that crystals do not have, says Fernando Gravera Vasquez, associate professor of mathematics. They have been shown to be stiffer than similar periodic or disordered materials. They can also conduct electricity or scatter waves in different ways that are different from crystals. Wow, this is kind of what I was just talking about. Imagine having tubes within tubes within tubes of these different quasi particle magnetic properties. This could itself actually scale out these geometries in a magnetic or in like an actual type of structure. Wow. They also conduct electricity. Okay. Picture a checkered board. You never can take a 2x2 square of black tiles and a 2 white or red tiles and copy and paste to obtain the whole checkerboard. Such periodic structures with patterns that do repeat naturally occur in crystals. Take, for example, a grain of salt. At the atomic level, it is a grid-like structure of sodium and chloride atoms. You could copy and paste the lattice from one part of the crystal and find a match in any other part, but a quasi-periodic structure is deceiving. One example is the pattern called Penrose Tiling. At first glance, the geometric diamond-shaped tiles appear to be a regular pattern, but you can't copy and paste this pattern. It won't repeat. The discovery of quasi-periodic structures in some metal alloys by material scientist Dan Schveckman earned a 2011 Nobel Prize in Chemistry and opened up the study of quasi-crystals. Yeah, this is all geometry. This is sweet. What would happen if they had one more pair of transducers to find out Raymakers and Graduate Mills student, blah, 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 blah. Creating quasi-periodic patterns. Sweet. Okay, the full studies here, blah, blah, blah. Crucially, with this method, we can create quasi-periodic materials that are either 2D or 3D that can have essentially any of the common quasi-periodic symmetries by choosing how we arrange the ultrasound transducers and how we drive them. Huh. Very cool. All right, so we'll get out of that, hop back into some more. What else do we got here? Okay, gold sees quasi-stationary waves in the nighttime ionosphere. The wave-like features in the pre-midnight ionosphere are not moving very strongly from day to day. They're often associated with the equatorial plasma bubbles, but their origin is still unknown. Gold. Gold, situated over Americas, measures mainly the emissions from atomic oxygen and excited states at nighttime, visualizing the variations of nighttime low altitude, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it's not really gold. All right. So anyway, I'm getting out of this article. I'm hopping into the next one. This is really cool. This is exactly what we're talking about here. These Alfine waves. Okay. Alfine Wave Zoo. The importance to understand the alphenic plasma motions of it is of paramount importance to determine plasma stability, plasma heating, non-inductive current drive, and particle acceleration. Therefore, before moving into any application, Alfvén wave particle interaction processes, it is an order to discuss a bit more on what type of Alfvén wave people are talking about and how they name it. This means that it is necessary to explore a little further the animals, I love that, present in Alfvén Wave Zoo. Okay, so we'll go to the article here. Okay, there's a lot to talk about, but I can go through the abstract here. And this is, yeah, this is all the, this is the Alfvén Zoo. All right, I'm gonna have to pull it closer so I can see. It has been shown that a variety of names are assigned to the original MHD, Alfvén wave, derived originally by Hans Alfvén in the 40s. And those names are used due to different magnetic geometries where the target plasma could be confined, that is, in laboratory, in fusion, in space, and in astrophysics, where one could use as working geometry systems such as Cartesian, cylindrical, toroidal, dipolar, or even more complex ones. We also show that different names with no new dramatic new physics inducing misleading information on what is new and relevant and what is old related to the considered wave mode. We also show that the changing the confining geometry and the background plasma kinetic properties, the Alfvén wave dispersion properties, change accordingly, and this change induces all type of non-necessary swarms of names from the MHD derived. Okay, so here we are back on the news hour. Okay, and going on, we have a open cylinder, closed cylinder, and a closed cone. This is all the geometry, the nodes, the modes happening within the individual oscillations, the resonance that's happening, organ pipes, and vortex action. In organ pipes of a certain calibre, very sensitive waves occur at intervals as according to the character of the sound evolved, but on a combination of resonators composed of brass tubes of more than 9 in number, a wave of sound induced by certain chords passing over them produces high vortex action of the air enclosed in them. The vibration of tuning forks induces alternate condition of the air that surrounds them. If an open atmosphere, but quite a different action presents itself with when the forks are exercised in resonating tubes, set to thirds of the mass chord they represent, then high vortex action is the instant result. Sick. Vibrators cannot be set promiscuously in the tubes and get such results any more than a musician can render a musical composition of the violin before tuning it. Cool. That's from Dale Pond. Thank you, Dale. Had him on the show a couple times. Here is one of my images here of the Dougherty set, and the same kind of similar principles of what we're talking about: the birkeland current, the plasma jet, the Hopfian vibration, Hopfian field, the Hop field, or twist ore that's moving its way through the projective geometry. I just laid that on there. So yeah, I have a bunch of information about that right here. If anyone cares to read it. But it's mostly reiterating the same stuff that I've been talking about with DNA and creatures form and morphic resonance and the actual geometry of it. So, all right, let's see here. Oh, this is great. Hans Alfvén, right here. A Swedish electrical engineer, plasma physicist, and winner of the 1970s Nobel Prize in Physics for his work on magnetohydrodynamics. He described the class of MHD waves known as the Alfine waves. He was originally trained as an electrical power engineer and later moved to research as an research and teaching in the fields of plasma physics and electrical engineering. Alfvén made many contributions to plasma physics, including the theories describing the behavior of aurorae, the Van Allen radiation belts, the effect of magnetic storms on the Earth's magnetic field, the terrestrial magnetosphere, and the dynamics of plasma in the Milky Way galaxy. The coronal heating problem, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff here that we can read about. But yeah, that's an article for Hans Alfvén. And the wiggling, the wigger within a wiggle, a bigger wiggle, like Alan Watts talks about, is also indicative of these Alfvén waves, which are sound waves that move in plasma. They produce disturbances in the plasma, which is great. So how to design an icosahedral quasicrystal through directional bonding. That's interesting. So that's here if you want to check that out. This is on the Facebook group. Anybody can check it out, the Geometric View News. Now, here's more. You have seen a birkeland current. For this is a birkeland current. The geometry of filamentary and nodal structures, aka the math and geometry of flow systems and networks. Smoke and the observed double layering effect, stellar plasma formations, and the proposed nodal and filamentary galactic structure of the universe, aka the dispersion of matter in the universe into filament and nodal structures. This entire thing is composed of birkeland currents, which are cables of electric charge in the form of plasma electric charge. So you can see those. You could see if I took the geometry of that little critter from the beginning, from our Google presentation, from a beginning, and how they would fit inside here as ideas, as resonant ideas, and also as visible, audible, or maybe invisible, but audible formations. So there's the filaments, Birkeland current filaments, winding and binding magnetic strings, the galaxy showing how it does the same thing. So moving on. Acoustic tractor beam can grab objects from behind obstacles. This is cool. Here is electric universe architecture. Here's the Jed, the Jedi, the pillar. Here's old ancient Tibetan geometry. Here is technology and decoration, and you have the same plasma instability like structures that Peratt himself, Dr. Anthony Peratt, developed in the lab that represent animal looking, creature looking structures like this. The squatting man with multiple toroids down the central poloidal axis. Another instability, plasma instability, and how they form heteromaching, heterodyning plasmas. And then back to the pillars. This looks really cool. More insight on technological production of ball lightning, because this is exactly like what we've been talking about. Like all these things are interrelated. That's why I keep sharing them. So we'll check that out. While that opens, we'll look at this. Acoustic track beam that can bend sound around obstacles to levitate an object on the other side has been created by researchers and has been dubbed Sound Bender. The device combines an ultrasound transducer with an acoustic metamaterial. Whoops, I didn't want to allow that. Anyway, okay. Here we go. I'm excited. Get excited. Okay. Particle levitation on top of a passive object. Tactile feedback around the passive object. Interesting. Flow control around a non-solid object. Hybrid sound modulator combines metamaterial and phased arrays of transmission. Transducers. Okay. And this geometry, of course, you know what I'm going to say, positive, negative type of beaming, tractor beaming. Oh, there's that shape. Yeah, baby. Oh boy. This is all sound. Hmm. Wow. Sound bender, hybrid sound bender. Dynamic acoustic control behind obstacles. Damn. That is cool. All right. I'm a fan of that, that's for sure.
Hey, it's Danielle here at 4 Page
Hi,
News.
Danielle here.
Some really great news.
That's some great news.
The Martin Fleischmann Memorial
We're
Project.
not watching that. Okay, so let's check out this ball of lightning here. I haven't opened this article yet. I'm curious. Oh, it's a YouTube? Sick.
To this, it's part 2, actually almost part 3 of this series on ball lightning. It's not the first series I've done on ball lightning, but it is the most recent series I've done on ball lightning. And I hope that you got a chance to look at the previous presentation that I intimated would be good to look at, which was the Paul Collock out of patent. This was quite an important insight for me. But when I was trawling around after our meeting last night, I came across a fusion technology paper, and I was
All right, I'm gonna scroll through this because it's like 3 hours long.
Sorry. I think I'm getting too close. The universe is stopping this from out, but we're going to battle through. Okay. All right. So I don't know whether you missed anything, but what I'm saying is that this is another case.
All right. So yeah, we can check that out whenever. So here's another image that I created. And this is actually, as we saw that tractor beam, using this shape to be able to projectively move the object passing through another person. That's amazing. It uses this same petal-like shape, eyeball-like type of shape, Vesica Pisces type of shape. But this is a solar flare. Right here, a natural, not a solar flare, a natural lens flare on a camera. You can comment below for credit. I'm not sure where this came from. Someone tagged me years ago or something, and I decided to throw it inside of the tube toroidal Alfine Zoo and show what kind of babies are born. Have a baby by me, baby, be a billionaire. Be a billionaire. But yeah, so these babies are born. And you can see the pinching, the changing of the colors, the vortexture, literally vortexture of this. It's just beaming with truth. So as it overlays and shows how things move, as lens flares normally do when you superimpose them on the Dougherty set. And here's more of the same type of geometry. Here's an image. We talk about the nested polygons. Here's a good image of nested polygons that are changing. So morphogons, morphospace with the polygons. This is a good image from our friend Welcome to the Gold Page. And Clay Taylor, combination of both their work. It's a light moving through a sphere, showing the light that comes off of the sphere and how it fits right on Nefertiti. And I think that's Nefertiti. I forget. So let's see. Our good friend Clay Taylor posted the rainbow pattern created by a straight sunlight beam through a glass sphere, and we noticed the top prism is a match to the angle of the Great Pyramid. It was only years later I realized that the other rainbow is a match to the angle of Nefertiti's crown. Huh. Why wouldn't you want to mirror that? I think I'm going to have to get myself a crown. You know what that reminds me of? The Shriners Don't they have a Shriner hat like that? Or king, queen, crowning, coronation, coronation. You know. What do we got here? Black hole mass scales with galaxy size. Yeah. Plasmoids you mean plasmoid mass scales with galaxy size? Yeah. I think that's what they mean. Does every galaxy have a black hole? One size doesn't fit all. The hearts of four massive elliptical galaxies show that the more massive a galaxy's central bulge, the more massive its black hole. Makes sense. The black and white images at the left show the galaxy's close-up taken with the Hubble Space Telescope fill the mid-column. The right-hand column illustrates the corresponding black hole masses.
Oh, look, that's like the same. It's like the carrot or the bean sack fits the size of the bean. The ball sack fits the size of the ball.
Well, it could be a different way, but hey, at least that fits, and it works good. Here's my girl. I love her so much, and I had the pleasure of meeting her at the University of Science and Philosophy, Hannah. She's awesome, and yeah. So this is some of her work, showing the vortexture and the toroidal, helicoidal progression of cubes and squares, and how the further showing Russellian periodic table of elements. So she says, what is this? Oh, she says a lot, so you're going to have to check it out on your own. So it's more about sound, more about frequency, vibration, how it climbs. More about what we were talking about. Oh, and bam, from one vortex to another. You can see these hexagonal geometries, not only by Lapointe's primer field theory, where there is a structure that's formed inside of the vortexes of magnetism. There's a structure that forms, and it is these, like I've been saying, these normal regular polyhedra, nested in polyhedra geometries that are spinning, like Plato said. Actually, there are 3D structures that are spinning. Music of the spheres. 3D platonic solids spinning produces the atomic table. But we see hexagonal structures at the top of the poles of different planets, and different multiple nested vortex systems, or related combined vortex systems at different poles. So it's the same thing with the cavitations of life, and how it embeds inside of life, and how it embeds inside of life, inside of geometric filaments, inside of geometric filaments. Here's a bunch more. Perhaps if we really knew the precise geometry of how we fold, unfold, and refold, we might get pulled even closer to the exponential. The DNA of information, hierarchical, nested, double helical, everything. We are umbilical. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can count, then you know what gate is what on the Dougherty set. It's not hard to count until it gets really small, and then you're going to count these going way out here. So this is the fourth gate, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is 4 and 12. Yeah. So 4 and 12 gate create these 90-degree L's that line up from one axial aligned filament or column to the next axial aligned filament to column. So the information from down here is transposed to up here, is transported to over here, is transported over here inside of a system scaled up with this type of double helical quaternion filament type of structure, which is what the whole Dougherty set is based off of, creating the same geometry that we see in generational geometry when you study your family roots and your family tree, and also the umbilical helical geometry. So, okay, that's enough of that. We'll hop on to the next. Here we go. A rapidly expanding solar quake on the sun's surface, depicted here by the Michelson Doppler image, MDI. It immediately followed a solar flare on 1996, July 6th, and spread out more than 100,000 kilometers at the solar surface. Scientists have shown that solar flares produce seismic waves and gigantic seismic quakes in the sun's interior. They have tracked these seismic waves and found that sunquakes closely resemble earthquakes on our planet. That's liquid. The very branch of science of helioseismology tells you that the sun is condensed matter, since ripples like dropping a pebble in a pond can only propagate in condensed matter, liquids, and solids. A gas or gaseous plasma can only sustain a longitudinal shock wave, not ripples propagating parallel along the real condensed matter surface. Any argument to the contrary of condensed matter is dismantled by this one image and the entire branch of helioseismology in general. Booyah shaka. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Jason Verbelli, for wording it so eloquently. Okay, here's a buddy of mine, Henry Siegerman. Freaking amazing mathematician. Had the pleasure of meeting up with him and getting to hang out with him and sing songs with him and play guitar and just chill and get to know him and his friends and stuff at the Bridges Math Conference in 2017. So look at this is what we're totally talking about right here. This undulative geometry with hierarchical nested cylindrical cylinders within cylinders, creating a Bessel function flow with vortex dynamics moving, opposing spiral vortex dynamics moving as the undulative motion. Okay. Menticide. Menticide is the systematic effort to undermine and destroy a person's values and beliefs, as by the use of prolonged interrogation, drugs, torture, etc., and to induce radically different ideas. Induce radically different ideas. Wow. Menticide. That's what everybody's having that impinged on them right now. Retinal waves prime visual motion detection by simulating. Okay, this is good. This is really good. Retinal waves visual. As a mouse runs forward, Okay. Scenery that it passes flows backwards. Show that all the developing mouse retina practices in advance for what the eyes must later process as the mouse moves. Spontaneous waves of retinal activity flow in the same pattern as would be produced days later by actual movement through the environment. This pattern spontaneous activity refines the responsiveness of cells in the brain's superior colocus, which receives neural signals from the retina to process directional information. Okay, so what this is it's saying that eyes practice what they see before they even start seeing things in the womb. And they took this geometry that is seen by the animals and critters, uh, and they knew that their eyes were already seeing things and practicing to seeing things. So let's see if we can go to the introduction. Fundamental circuit features of the mouse vital system emerge before the onset of vision, allowing a mouse to perceive objects and detect visual motion immediately upon eye opening. How the mouse visual system achieves self-organization by the time of eye opening without structured external sensory input is not well understood. In the absence of sensory drive, the developing retina generates spontaneous activity in the form of propagating waves. Past work has shown that spontaneous retinal waves provide the correlated activity necessary to refine the development of gross topographic maps in downstream visual areas, such as retinotopy, the eye-specific segregation, but it is unclear whether waves also convey information that instructs the development of higher order visual response properties such as direction, selectivity at eye opening. Super cool. Super, super cool. Yeah, their eyes are being trained by something, by these preliminary waves before they even open their waves so they can see immediately upon opening their eyes. This is just more about Morphospace that we've been talking about in this episode. Morphospace and the filaments and the individual compartmentalization or segmentation of the individual kink instability or part and parcel of the nodes versus the filament. Oh, this is it. Animals dream about the world they are entering even before entering it. This is what we just talked about. One has a video. I swear I saw a video about this. Where's this video here? This is it. I noted. It's not much, but it is something. They're training the waves here. Trying to get it to get full size. That's super cool though, man. That's like, that is the definition of the prebiotic form we're talking about. Morphospace, morphovision. Whew, crazy. Conic sections, this is a good one. The math, and shown in a creative way. All sorts of different hyperbolic math that we deal with here on the show. The fractal physics of nature. I thought that was good, so I shared it here for everyone. Looks like physical matter is music solidified, Pythagoras. Or in Sanskrit, Nada Brahma, the word is sound. Nada Brahma, the word is sound. While abracadabra, I'll add to that, abracadabra is my words become reality or something. My words become body. With sound, a certain liveliness also makes it richer. Oh, with sound, a certain liveliness also makes its richer appearance. Nice. Okay. Here's our girl Hannah doing the awesome. With those jet-like structures for, it looks like the water towers that people get water off of. That's always good. Ooh, this is fun. Okay, these are Beltrami Vortexes. And this is Beltrami himself. And Beltrami and I both developed the same similar thing here. I did a whole episode about it. Happened to be the episode right around episode 6 last year or so, or 10, where we're showing the intertubule geometry of sonobiology right here, this image. That's the same thing. And this also happens inside of Beltrami vortices. This is a Beltrami vortex right here. And that's what we were talking about from the beginning of these ideas or these forms, these bodies that are created inside of these that are segmented and are able to move. Even these bodies that are the starburst formation, this is all coming down to these, which happen to be, the name of these are, I think, antispheres. Because the Riemannian curvature is always a negative curvature on the construct, whereas a sphere, it's always a positive curvature. So this is constantly negative. Pseudospheres is what it's called, a pseudosphere. So these are pseudospheres nested within pseudospheres nested within pseudospheres, creating the opposed spiral vortices that Walter Russell talks about along the atomic structure, the atomic weight, the atomic vortex-based weight system that Markland convection also uses and shows how the particles separate. So, kind of pinched here in this spot today where I'm, where I set up. So here, let me go out of here. A little bit of music. So this is showing off the filament and how they're connected to all the other filaments in a continuous way. and all levels of all other filaments. What's going on here? What's going on here? It's just beautiful. There's that starburst formation showing that this motion and cavitation of individual plasmoids and nodes, nodal plasmoids. Boom. Here's the Beltrami Vortex dynamics and the blue whirl. Yep, there's the blue whirl. Here's the blue whirl inside of another blue whirl inside of another blue whirl. And there's the birkeland current inside of a birkeland current inside of a birkeland current. And that's how it's built, how the charge comes down on the planets. This is great. This is incredible. Dr. Michael Levin, Tufts University, goes into talking about really cool stuff. That's why I learned about the Morphospace, was studying some of his stuff. But yeah, his work is incredible. They're building new robots. We'll have to get into it. We'll just do a whole episode about it. This is a good one. The 9th, the keynote molecular chord, 1st octave keynote atomic chord, 2nd octave etheric chord, harmonic thirds from Dale Pond here. Kink mode instability, showing that, yeah, it's all kinky. The whole thing is kinky. Ooh, this is fun. A bow shock. This is the bow shock, or normal shock, curve propagating disturbance wave characterized by an abrupt, nearly discontinuous change in pressure, temperature, and density. Bow shock here shown in the Dougherty set at the core of the blue whirl within blue whirl within blue whirl. My technology is going to be incredible. Bow shock of the bullets, etc. Bow shock in the planetary magnetotail. How everything has some sort of bow shock. I thought this was cool, thinking about the galaxy rotating, you doing that. All life on Earth is in vortices. The orifices hold these as torices. When we die, over 60 different types of toroidal sphincters open up and release the liquids of life. We lose life. We lose our bowels. Our entire life we communicate pushing and pulling vortices through the torices of the 3-tiered sphincter of the larynx. What I'm trying to say is we communicate by talking and saying through toroidal sphincters, talking and singing through toroidal sphincters. And the talking and singing is different size vortices. Just like this standing wave here, different size vortices. Oh, this is cool. Huge tuning fork vibrating. Of course, this is gorgeous, and I think this is where we left off last time. But maybe not. We'll see. Jellyfish like poloidal, toroidal, helicoidal. Wait till they go inside of each other. Hold it. Theodorian, Feroidian, helicoidal. You know. pupil, retinal. Yep, this is where we were. These helical bodies that we're talking about. This is a bubble boundary.
26 hertz.
Waves colliding with hexagon grid. Yeah, we looked at this last time, so we'll look at this one more time. And then we're going to have to call it a show. Call it a wrap.
My job is to make college easy.
Thank you, everybody, for being here on episode 54 of the Geometric View. The best way to get a hold of me is Buddy James or just Buddy James on Facebook. My Gmail, if you want to contact me, is goldenscaling@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for participating, checking us out. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I learned some stuff. I know that I did. And we can take this information and help share it with other people to change lives and radically change our future for the betterment. All right, guys. Well, thank you for everyone, like I said, for being here. And have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on episode 55, season 5. Thank you for being here for episode 54, season 5 of the Geometric View. See you next week.
I will never be a better person. You can never see me. I can never be inside of that tree. I can never be inside that forest. You wanna see me, but I'm not seeing you. You wanna get where I am, then you cannot you. You can't get you. I don't wanna. For the most of the time, I cried to divide the clouds when I got off and you live in the world. You give a different stuff. I'm a better thirst. I'm a different nerve. Get the different curse. Perfect all around. Something I'm off. It's perfect because it's just perfect. Nobody get it off. It's legally off. Piece of the pie. If you want a piece of that, you can have a piece of the pie. I'll give you that. I'll give you that much. If you want a piece of this, I'll give you a piece of me. Legally I'm off of your soul. Yes, if you can pick up one more piece of me. The perfect compound job. If you want a piece of this, I'll give you a piece of by the grain of stars. Sometimes it's like some moods you have on every dance floor do. Real smooth, it's like the moves you have on the dance floor. Real smooth. Real smooth dance floor, dude. It's real smooth. I like some moves on the dance floor, dude. Christ be in you, Christ be in me, Christ be in God, all of us be in us as God is in one in all as one flesh is one flesh. You're real smooth out on the dance floor, dude. Real smooth out on the dance floor, dude. Real smooth out on the dance floor, dude. Real smooth out on the dance floor, dance floor.
The Geometric View is a Love is Watching product. Love is Watching being. Thank you for doing that. Keep your eyeballs out. Pay attention. There's a lot going down this year. vigilant, be mindful, be insightful, be loving. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being kind. Share the love, spread the love, become the love. Amen.
small, eyes are tall, eyes all over the wall, eyes all over your body. Can I just see straight through with transparent golden scaling? The largest of the atom, let's embark on this because this is the journey. The journey is life. Take hold. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Join us in the fight for Christ, in the fight to save lives. Surprise, submersible, so fast, the first, the last of baptism, need to say more. Pay attention like the marrow in your bones, arrow in your back, arrow in your lungs, zero into the fact you're hearing Christian neurons, synapses and arrow entrance into eternity. I'm a courier of charismatic attitude, meters even neater, it might even be fun. Cider indeed, need nerds, you need nerds, need a virtue, need to be a reason. Feasibility to be a reason to be clean and sober, keys, open doors, signs of directions. Be the carrier of candlesticks, the man who brought you change. Every second you ride, trimming your ribbon, you pivot, potential, you curve and cat. Could be cold, could be copycat, could be copy corpse, could be Schrodinger's best. Could be Micro Racker, Mackie, normal, open-minded, itsy bitsy, freaking huge. A universal supermassive aspect of attached awareness. Aware of this all?
Collaborative consumption.
Are you aware of this song?
Collaborative consumption.
The new thing
Consumption. Collaborative consumption. Consumption.
Get up now! Out of the boat! Drop! Where did this up? We don't got 'em out of the girl. But about it, not about it, got us spirit. Get up, what's up? Jedi chapter. We're playing on the middle foot. I'm in search of, I'm in earth love, I'm in living life, I'm in living color, I'm in air drop, I'm an earth dang, I'm an earth dang, I'm an earth dang, I'm an earth dang.